Hello. We're going to touch back in on air having weight today. We're going to watch the remaining part of the Mystery Science video, and then we're going to have a small activity for today.
So you saw in the activity, when you let out all of the air from one side of the balance scale, the balloons with the air still in them dropped down. They were heavier. So air does weigh something. Today, scientists are able to measure exactly how much air a plant takes in. And they figured out that a tree as massive as General Sherman is taking in as much as 4 pounds of air per day. That's the equivalent of 700 balloons worth of air. Now still, air is very lightweight. But just consider how long trees like this live for. We don't know for sure how old General Sherman is, but similar sized sequoias that have died or fallen over, like this one here, if you count the rings, you find out that a tree General Sherman's size is probably 2,000 years old. So do the math. General Sherman takes in 4 pounds of air per day. Multiply that 4 pounds by 365 days per year. And then multiply that by 2,000 years that General Sherman has probably been alive. That's nearly 3 million pounds of air that General Sherman has taken in over its whole lifetime. Its total weight is 4 million pounds. So, whoa, air makes up most of a plant's weight. 3 million pounds of General Sherman has come from air alone. So what do plants eat? Mystery solved. Or almost at least. Because you could wonder, well, why didn't all of General Sherman's weight come from air? What's that other 1 million pounds of weight coming from? But don't forget, not only are trees taking in air, they're also taking in water through their roots. So now, what do plants eat? Where do they get their weight from? You can answer it. The weight comes from air and water. Now you know. Okay, now remember when I said at the beginning, if you're eating bacon, you could argue to your parents that you're actually eating your vegetables, since bacon comes from an animal, and whenever you trace the food chain backwards, you always wind back up in plants. You could try out that idea on your parents. See if they're convinced. But if your parents know the answer to the mystery of what do plants eat, then one morning, don't be surprised if you show up at breakfast and find this. Here's your breakfast, your mom says. And you'll say, what? There's nothing here but an empty plate and a glass of water. But your parents can argue, well, if you're going to claim that bacon is a vegetable, then we get to claim that vegetables are just air and water. So enjoy your breakfast. Now, I'm sure you realize I'm being slightly silly with all this, because obviously if you just ate air and water for breakfast, you'd starve. But there is a sense in which you do eat air and water for breakfast. It is true that when you eat bacon, you're eating something which originally came from air and water. There's something that plants are doing with air and water. Plants somehow transform air and water into the nutrients eaten by animals and eaten by us. Now, what is this transformation? It seems almost magical. I mean, think about it. How could two substances like air and water, both of which are clear, and neither of them are solid, and yet they could be transformed into wood or leaves, materials that are definitely solid and definitely not clear? That's a whole other set of mysteries. That's a whole part of science called chemistry. It's the study of materials and how they can be transformed into new materials with totally different properties. Now, there's so many awesome things you'll get to learn when you study chemistry. Chemistry really is almost like magic. We'll have some mysteries to help you explore that if that interests you. For now, I hope you'll stay curious and see you next mystery.
All right, fifth graders. I hope you enjoyed our science lesson. Now I just want to rephrase what we've learned in this activity. You know, air does have weight, and trees and other plants gain their weight from air and water. Now, I know that in earlier grades, you've learned that plants need the nutrients that are in the soil, and that is true. However, the weight of the plant comes from air and water. All right, so today's activity is actually the end of our study study on how plants take in air and water to gain weight. And you're going to be answering these questions in our attached document on Schoology. Right? How do you know that a tree isn't gaining weight from the soil? Right? If you remember, they talked about an experiment in the first lesson that we watched, an experiment that a scientist did to find that the tree was not gaining weight from the soil. So you're going to answer this question, and be careful when you answer an extended response question, you're going to use part of the question to start your answer. Okay, so the question is, how do you know that a tree isn't gaining its weight from the soil? So you may start your answer with, I know a tree isn't gaining weight from its soil because, and then you finish your sentence. And of course, you'd want to give evidence to back it up. Right, question number 2. What do you think would happen to a plant if you put tape on the underside of its leaves? Why? Okay, so you may start this question with, if I put tape on the underside of a leaf, then you'd finish your sentence and you'd give evidence. Okay, number 3, in the experiment where the scientist weighed a tree and its soil, even though the soil barely lost any weight, it did lose a bit of weight. Given what you know about plants, why do you think that happened? All right, there's not one right answer to this question. This is thinking about all of your experiences and your past knowledge in science. And what would your prediction be? Okay, a good way to start this question would be, scientists weighed a tree and its soil, and the soil lost weight. I think the soil lost weight because, all right, and then back up your answer with a reason or evidence to support your answer. And then the last question for today is, many people who haven't learned about plants believe that plants eat soil. What are some reasons why they might think that? Right, so you might start this with, some people believe that plants eat soil. This might be because, all right, so this assignment is a final assessment for this part of our science unit. Remember, you are going to use part of the question to start your answer. You're going to use capital letters and periods like we do on every assignment. Okay, and you're also going to use what you learned in this science unit and what you've learned in the past to answer these questions. All right, good luck. Remember, this assignment is in your Schoology folder for today.